All right, hey guys. Cool, so my talk today is going to be a little bit of a continuation of the auditing panel that we just had about an hour ago, about kind of conventional auditing versus the community contest approach to auditing. The title here is Quality of Auditors or Quantity, which one matters more. And so last DeFi Security Summit, Sherlock released the hybrid audit contest model, which is sort of a combination of an audit contest and reserving well-known top auditors to also audit the code base in a more traditional fashion alongside it. And it's a really cool model. Basically, there's incentives for both sides to perform well. If they don't perform well, there are negatives. They lose out on money, they lose out on ranking, they lose out on potential leading opportunities in the future. So last DeFi Security Summit was end of August, so we're about 10.5 months into this new hybrid audit contest approach that Sherlock has been kind of pioneering. We've done about 85 contests, and we found around 1,000 high or medium vulnerabilities in those 85 contests. And so we're now at the point where we have like a kind of statistically significant data set that we can sort of look at and try to find some interesting things in. And one of the important questions, or one of the questions that people are very curious about, is who actually is finding most of the issues in these contests, in these audits that kind of combine both the traditional and the community approach. So just as a reminder, in Sherlock contests, there's usually 1 to 2 highly ranked elite auditors. We call them lead senior Watsons. They get paid a lot of money every week to show up and do the audit. And then there's roughly 200 security experts on average. I think it's closer to 300 to 400 at this point. But across that data set, it's about 200 on average that are looking at these contests. And so the question for you all is, who do you think finds more of the critical and important bugs in these audits? Raise your hand if you think the 1 to 2 highly ranked elite auditors are finding more of the critical bugs. All right, maybe like 30 hands. Raise your hand if you think the 200 kind of random security experts all over the world are finding the most critical bugs. About the same. All right, it's a split audience. So we'll start with non-critical first. These are like the medium vulnerabilities. These are things that are not super critical. They're not kind of crazy in terms of could hack your protocol immediately. As you can see, 1 to 2 lead senior Watsons, they find 46%, the community finds 81%. And that's not super surprising because a lot of these things are sort of creative, they're sort of edge cases that maybe you would find, maybe you wouldn't. It's not the worst thing in the world if you miss one. So having 200 people looking at code just kind of, you just find a lot more of these. But moving to who finds the actual critical vulnerabilities, it's really close. So the 1 to 2 lead senior Watsons found 66% of them roughly. The community found 76% roughly. So, I mean, I would almost call that a tie, but as you can see, the community kind of edges out the senior Watsons when it comes to finding those critical vulnerabilities in Sherlock contests over the last 10.5 months. So we think that's really kind of interesting, and the fact that both numbers are so high is really a testament to the skill of both sides, in my opinion. And another way of showing this data is basically, if you don't have lead senior Watsons, if you don't have those reserved auditors doing this audit, then you will miss roughly 1/4 of the critical vulnerabilities, in the code base. And if you don't have that community aspect, if you don't have the contest with hundreds of auditors participating, then you will miss about 1/3 of the critical vulnerabilities in your code base. And so here's a small case study. Sherlock did an audit on the Bedrock system of Optimism, their upgrade, earlier this year. It was the 7th audit, so this was like a pretty well audited code base at this point. Sherlock was still able to find 3 kind of critical high vulnerabilities. We kind of categorized those together. And the interesting thing about those 3 vulnerabilities wasn't so much that we found them, but it was how they were found. And you can see here, one of the vulnerabilities was found by the lead senior Watsons, and it was solo. So only the lead senior Watsons found him. Shout out to Zach and Trust. I think Trust might be here for finding those. They were kind of the team, the lead senior Watson team that took on this audit. And then one person from the community found a solo finding that the lead senior Watsons did not find, and that was HE1M, really crazy bug. We can talk about that in another talk. And then there was another critical vulnerability that was submitted by both the lead senior Watsons and the community. And the interesting about this is it's kind of a perfect case study for if you had only had one of those parties, if you only had the community, you would have missed a critical vulnerability. If you only had the lead senior Watsons, you would have missed a critical vulnerability. And so Sherlock's stance on what's better, the community or the traditional style of auditing, is having both is better. There's not like this, you don't need to choose one or the other. You should have both. You should combine them in the audit. And Sherlock is the only one that kind of provides that right now. We're the only auditor that has both the contest model and that more traditional approach of including well-known security experts and paying them a fixed amount of money to show up. And another shill for Sherlock is that we have millions of dollars of smart contract coverage that any protocol that goes through a Sherlock audit is able to activate after they do the audit. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And the last thing to talk about is Sherlock is shipping, for the people who compete on Sherlock, which I know there are a decent amount of them in the audience, Sherlock is shipping a new feature that will go live for the index contest starting tomorrow, which is anonymous submissions, which people have been asking about for a while. And that means that your Sherlock username will no longer be shown in the judging contest. Basically, if you are an unknown security expert, someone might see that you're less well-known than the lead senior Watson, and they might say, oh, I'm not sure that issue is real. Now everybody gets the same green, spicy unicorn made-up name, and there's no way to tell who the lead senior Watson is. You have to only judge the issue on its merits. So that's coming out tomorrow. We're excited for it, and hopefully all the Watsons are too. Thank you.